My name is Noor. I work at YouTube. Sorry to those who are behind this and can't see me. Um, if you know anything about music or curious about different artists, different campaigns, magazine covers, you know that I'm with three people who I consider quite legendary in the industry. So thank you all for joining me. Why don't we start with quick intros? Maybe Alex, you can start. Why don't you go with your name, a little bit about what you do, and a song that you can play, listen on repeat forever.
Okay, my name is Alex Boateng. I am co-president with my identical twin brother of 0207 Def Jam. 0207 represents London, of course, where I'm from. Def Jam is the legendary New York-based label that is 40 years old this year, actually. Yeah. Ooh. It'd be a 40 cool? Okay, cool. Anyway, the label has a bunch of amazing artists. Bloody Civilian, Odu Modu Black, J.O., a lot of artists we're developing. Stormzy was our first signing as well. So, and I worked at a few other labels before that in music.
What song would you play on repeat?
At the moment, my morning song is Thames, Free Mind.
Good one.
That was going to be my song.
Sorry. Great
Quick
taste.
change of song. Let's go,
Can't
Caroline.
share.
Gonna have to think fast. Hi everyone. Wow, these mics are loud and quiet. My name is Caroline Esham. I am an agent at an agency called WME. I represent lots of different types of talent. I work with some musicians. I work with some entrepreneurs, some lifestyle talent. I represent Shani, who's sitting right next to me, my favorite client ever, obviously. Some designers. A lot of what I do is more revolved around strategy and overseeing the team. So we're quite a big agency. I like to find very multi-dimensional people to work with, to bring in as clients, and I build out worlds around them.
Are you going to change your song?
It's going to have to be Thames Love Me JJ.
Amazing.
We're just all Thames fans here.
This is a Thames panel. Please go ahead.
Hi guys, sorry I was late. My name is Shani, co-founder of a company called Native. We're an African company telling African stories. We have a record label, a music festival, and a magazine. And essentially we thought that stories being told here about Africans and about Africa weren't being told in the right way. And we wanted to create a company across culture that retold those stories. The song.
The song? Everyone's scared of the song. You touch it easy.
I'm gonna say a Thames song that's on her album coming out tomorrow. Check
Exclusive.
Yeah. The song called Hold On. I'm really into that right now. I think everyone will enjoy it.
Which one?
Hold On, the last record on the album. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, looking forward to hearing that soon. Today we're talking about music, content, young people, an intersection of it. Thanks again for being here. I think this is going to be a fun one. We're going to talk about Thames for 30 minutes. Thinking of young people, as I was putting together the questions, I think about like my experience with young people. I have a 12-year-old nephew who has a very interesting relationship with music. He doesn't currently care about art as much. He cares about melodies. He likes humming things, figuring them out, and like he sticks to melodies. It's really, now he's on a phase where he cares about personalities. He wants to wear the artist merch. He steals all my t-shirts. It's very fun and educational to see how like different generations interact with music in a different way. So my first question is, how do you think that young people today, I'm going to say young people because there's Gen Z, there's Gen Alpha, all those groups, but how do you think this new generation that we all talk about, how do you think their behaviors are changing the way music is right now?
I think it's very extreme in terms of it's at both ends of the spectrum. I feel young fans these days are very loyal, but also very just ambivalent to being like I think the Kendrick and Drake beef really encapsulated how fan behavior works now.
I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, I feel like Drake is an artist that previous to this beef, we'd all think incredibly loyal fan base, huge fan base, bigger than everyone else. Couldn't really be seen to lose a public beef, I would have thought. And I think this has just shown that the new generation of fans, there isn't that loyalty that, and everyone talks about super fans and stan culture, but I don't think super fans is about just like what you see in football, like blind tribalism. It's not. They kind of take every single moment and make a decision as to if they're your fan at that particular moment. Whereas in like football, I follow a lot of football and compare it to music a lot. In football, whatever your club does, you just support them. You just go with it, and it can be like the worst thing. But with music now, these young fans, if they feel like their favorite artist has kind of stepped out, they're gonna call it out and be like, actually, no, we don't agree with that. Apart from the small like section of like Nicki Minaj fans, yeah.
That's a very specific group. Is that a good thing or a bad thing that this generation is not ride or die necessarily?
I think it is what it is. I think it depends on each, like such a useless answer. But I think it's good if you are, I think it's good actually. No, it's good because I think it challenges artists, brands, and people and whoever you are in your quest to engage with them, to create some depth and to create hooks and I don't mean musical hooks, I mean things that allow your audience to feel like a sense of tribalism and like they belong. Like when I talk to my A&R guys, my ideal destination when making music and when your fans talk about you is when people say, I am in the mood for so-and-so artist. I'm in the mood for Thames, or I'm in the mood for Adele or Sam Smith or K-Trap, because it means they haven't just connected with a song. There's a commitment to the mood, the world you create. That might be the mood to surf, indulge in what they're doing online or play music, because it's not just about music. But when you've created a world, it means that there's a commitment. So I think it's good that it's challenging, it's tough on this side of things, because you have to really add depth and you have to ensure that you've got a reason for people to come back and stay there, and people you can upsell to and turn into super fans. But I think it's good if you can create that depth. I think Thames is an amazing example, because I'm not going to just talk about Thames all day, but that's probably the one artist I regret not being aggressive about trying to sign, because as a fan, I felt like from her first content, it was emotive. The music speaks for itself. Like her voice is, I think she's like a modern day Tracy Chapman. But I feel like from the get-go, there was bravery in the visuals, and as a young woman from Nigeria, it was quite obvious she wasn't trying to follow the status quo. So if you're a young woman in whatever environment you're in, there are hooks and there's a sense of you connecting with that. So I feel she did that from the beginning, and you see it evolve, and yeah, so it's good.
Anything else to say about Thames? No, I'm joking.
Well, Alex did put me onto Thames many years ago, and I'll always tell everyone that. But just on that point generally, I think that so much work has to be done into building worlds around these people. On my way here, I was just having a conversation about how D Block Europe, even at this point in their career where they've come so far and can sell out multiple arenas, etc., they're diversifying their business so much. Like Young Ads is YouTubing, like literally posting so many vlogs and, staying in the O2 Arena for 4 nights while he's doing shows and recording in there and filming everything and making an experience that people can buy into. D Block are arguably such an anomaly, in the rap world, because they've managed to completely jump over everyone in terms of how much they actually earn, like in reality, from touring, streams, etc., whilst completely staying out of the mainstream. It's bizarre, but they managed to do it because they built this community that is so diehard around everything that they do, whether that's, they're streaming, gaming, they are doing vlogs, they're doing competitions to sell their cars. Like, you're fully bought into a DBE lifestyle. And the thing that's even more interesting than that is that when you go to their shows, it's a very young, female, white audience. And you're just like, wow, how did we get here kind of thing. And it's that point of like, people are invested in the journey with them. They're probably invested in the lifestyle that they create. They want to live that and be in that world with them. And that's how they've managed to be so successful. I think they're completely fascinating.
Yeah, I think to add to that as well, there's something like at Native, because we have different parts of our company, we always talk about wallet share, which is this idea that, if we sell a fan a ticket to a festival, we should be able to sell them a magazine and also sell them a t-shirt and also sell them a drink. And I think probably the biggest difference between fan behavior now, even compared to 10 years ago, is that fans come to you for what they come to you for. I don't think it's as simple as, I just read something the other day about how, the J-Lo tour got pulled and people are kind of hating on her right now. Whereas 30 years ago, an artist that big, you put them in a movie and that movie's going number one. But I feel now fans, just because they love you for your music, you might not be able to sell them a t-shirt. You can't sell them a drink. You can't tell them I'm starting a supper club and they're going to come. I feel like fans these days are so opinionated. They know exactly what they want. They know what they're coming to you for, and they know what they're going somewhere else for. And whoever can crack that is basically who's going to be the most successful.
Yeah, that's a very good example and a very good point. In a world where artists have such direct relationship with their fans, and clearly you're saying fans are not, they're not easy to trick. You can't influence them easily. What role do you think like the traditional gatekeepers play now? Like you have a media company, you work at a label. How do you see your influence in a world where there's that direct relationship and communication?
It's massively changed. Like, I feel like in terms of gatekeeping, and I have my theory, I feel like there's a whole generation now growing up having to think about their own identity a lot quicker than others had to, in terms of having to be online. Like, I grew up in an era when, like, I was talking to my brother about it the other day, even on the way to school, like, you never really saw like your reflection. It's like, in terms of mirrors and maybe on the school bus and blah, blah, blah. But now, and it's a small thing, but kids as young as primary school are able to check what they look like and have to be so much more conscious of who they are. And even in terms of identity and tribes, you used to have to wait until you went to, if you're going to a school where everyone's wearing the same school uniform, you'd have to check what they're listening to, or go to their house to see what posters were on the wall to get a sense of who they were, what they represented, what their values were. Whereas now, social media on your profile communicates that straight away. So there's a whole part of young people's brains that's activated a lot earlier and have to think about what their values are, what they think about, what their visual identity is, outside just having to do it on the weekend. So you now have a whole generation of people that have a lot more control and are used to having control of what they consume, rather than being told, like, from being able to pause and rewind to not just 6 channels, but a bunch of them. So now you're having to really build genuine relationships rather than tell people something's important. You have to fit into their lives. Whereas music, in my world, music is something that no one needs. It's not an FMCG, it's not a tangible item, but it has to then enhance what that person is about. So we now have to spend so much more time understanding the audience's values, how they spend, how they communicate to each other, what they consume, how they consume it. And this is like, obviously, that's not to say you can't just make art that disrupts all of that, but our job once someone's making the art is to understand the best way to reach that audience. So we have to have so much more understanding of people's patterns and thinking and where things fit. So yeah.
Do you do anything to investigate, like, what are young people like? Is it purely observation, or do you spend any time on like trying to understand research?
A lot of research, a lot of data, because it'd be crazy not to. There's definitely instinct, and particularly around art, I like an equal sense of instinct and data. Like, probably used to be a lot more instinct heavy and used to be stubborn and not really want to follow data, but it's stupid not to. Even just to work out who is interacting with you, it's so easy in terms of back end on socials and blah, blah, blah. But even in more detail, you can now be a lot more qualitative, and you can check and search the feelings and thoughts behind your brand or music or song. So it'd be crazy not to get a sense of what that is.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to data with predicting fan behavior and what they might like, what they're not going to like, I think what Alex said about instinct's important, in the sense of, at least for me, like, I will check the data, but if I feel differently, I might still go with my different opinion. And at least you can see the numbers and be like, well, in 6 months' time, I'll either feel like, oh, I should just listen to the data, or maybe I was a bit early on this trend or on this sound, and you bet on what you're trying to do.
Data plus gut. Were you gonna say something?
I was just going to say, I think, like, for the conventional gatekeepers per se, when people talk about radio or labels or etc., I just think there is so much less control now, where, historically, I think we're all kind of in and around the music industry, right? For people who aren't, there's this big theory that, you know, the labels are controlling everything and there's industry plants. Like, these are narratives that have always existed in music, and probably some of them were true. You know, you're creating artists and there was a different world at that time. But I think now you also have to be much more reactive to things that are happening, and that's where the data comes in. And it's like, I saw that Tyler, who you guys probably know, had that big song. She had a cover yesterday that came out, and I think in the interview she said that when the song got massive, her whole team had to be, she was like, I wasn't ready. None of us were ready. We were just like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Like, we have to figure this out. Obviously, I'm paraphrasing, but she was saying, like, my team had to figure it out very quickly what to do, because she was having this global success. And so that is the reactive point of view. Like, Tyler's not a new artist. You know, by any accounts of people who've been in the music industry, you've known about her. You know, she's been around. And then you just have the one record and it goes, and everyone has to be able to respond to that. So I think at this point, your team is also only as good as how quickly you can mobilize when you do have a moment that breaks through, because you can't control that. You can't control, you know, there are things you can do to try and make things viral, to set little fires, plant seeds. You know, you can have the best digital marketing team on earth. You might not get that water moment that she had, you know. So I think we are going to continue to have these viral songs, and those things can't be gatekept. That will go straight to the top of radio across the world. You'll hear that in every random country. You know, there was no gatekeeper that could have controlled it.
This group is full of great examples. Thank you. What are some music or content tools and platforms that you think is specifically very good to speak to Gen Z, or that Gen Z looks at or is present at to, you know, express themselves and discover content? What do you think is a good platform or a tool?
You can't ignore TikTok.
Sure.
YouTube is amazing. I've been appreciating and seeing more deep conversation and content and engagement on Reddit in terms of conversation.
Reddit.
Yeah. I think any platforms in which you can have conversation, because I think, like, there's obviously all of them give you the ability to kind of put out content, but I think it's about stimulating engagement, like between fans, being able to sort of drop a bomb or drop content and let people engage and have conversation around it.
What about the artists you work with? Is there any platform that they naturally gravitate towards?
I think Instagram seems to be a favorite at the moment. I think definitely, like, it's weird because YouTube, it's become such a sort of staple. You almost, I think even artists don't even necessarily feel like, yeah, my YouTube strategy, because it's like a given that there's going to be some element of your content on YouTube. I think the challenge at the moment is probably for, like, the engagement on music videos has dropped, and obviously short form content is flying. And actually there's a book I've been reading called The Shallows. I can't remember the author, but that's actually, like, it's actually changing people's brains, particularly young people, but all of us, like, physically, the energy around it and how we take in other information. But I think every artist is unique, but they seem to be the staple. I think wherever you can have, we try and sign artists that have a bit more depth and really want to tell more of a story, or have that more than just one song wonders. So I feel like the conversations I'm having with them a lot is definitely about longer form content and how they can tell more of a story, which is good. That's coming from the creators.
I think, like, the actual streaming platforms where live streamers are got, you know, think of somebody like a Kai Cenat. If he was on a live stream and he plays a song, the song's gonna happen. You know, not saying people are gonna love it or hate it, but people will be listening to it. You're exposing an audience that is absolutely huge. So I think there's something in that. And obviously younger people are, like, to my niece who's 15, you know, she knew every single streamer. Like, there was somebody backstage at Wireless, I think, a couple of years ago, and she's like, oh, that's Speed. I didn't know who Speed was. But then I started seeing him everywhere. And so, you know, these type of people have an influence on them. So I think I saw a piece of content the other day about how, I don't know if any of you guys remember this, but when Kylie Jenner used to post a song on her Instagram or whatever was pre-TikTok, I don't remember what that app was called, but Vine, that was it. So she used to post things on Vine all the time, and it would make a song explode. Like, she could break records. It was so weird. But, you know, there's a new, she obviously can't do that now, I don't think, but there's like a power to whoever these newer folks are that the young people are listening to, and wherever they are. I think it's more about what platforms they're existing on. If it's Twitch, if it's live streaming, wherever, like, I think they have some power.
Yeah, I think that point's really pertinent. And going back to Alex's point as well, I think it's also very territory based. So for example, in West Africa especially, like YouTube is really, really big, but not even as a search engine. So in Nigeria specifically, as you know, you guys know as well, artists and labels spend a lot of money on YouTube ads. Like in between, like when I'm here, in between stuff on YouTube, I might see a Boohoo ad or some random fashion brand. In Nigeria, 99 times out of 100, you're going to see another music video of an artist you've never heard of. And funnily enough, back to the Thames thing, she was kind of one of the first people to actually do that with Try Me. And that really opened up the gate to people understanding how you can like get a song over on YouTube. So I think in Nigeria, artists, if we're trying to sign artists now, they're like, okay, how much are you putting behind YouTube ads? That's like a very typical question, because they think that's such an easy way for me to be discovered. And then I think on the can't ignore TikTok point, I think TikTok is really cool, again, with like connecting territories. For example, I was just in Lagos and I was in the car with some of my friends and I was playing the Tommy Richmond song. And, you know, my friends live in Lagos, but they're like, oh, we know this from TikTok. Whereas I feel 3 years ago, it might have taken another 6 months for people to know that song. Whereas now it's like this random guy who's signed to Brent Faiyaz's incredible music, but people in Nigeria know exactly who he is. They know the song because it's all over TikTok. So I think it's great in that sense. Music travels much, much quicker than it used to.
Does that create any challenges for creators or artists that short form is having such a big moment and explosive? Like what we know the advantages. It's viral. It's, you know, it's engagement, it's reach. But what does it do that's negative for the creative community?
I mean, I think the flip side of that is, you know, we run record labels. You will have a song that everyone knows and has no idea who the artist is.
Yeah.
Like you see that so often these days of people. And I think to Caroline's point about Tyler and Water, I would say the biggest thing that her incredible team got right was making sure people knew whose song that was. Like they made sure we saw her face. She's dancing to the song. We know this song associated with this artist. But so often, and speaking specifically from an Afrobeats perspective, there's so many hit songs that come out of Nigeria. Nigeria's not out of South Africa. That you have no idea what the artist looks like. You couldn't pick them out of a lineup, but the song is absolutely huge. I think that's probably the biggest problem with the short form content.
Yeah.
People just using music seeing it as less of an art and more as like background music.
Yeah, and that leads to like creator fatigue and artists not wanting to do it because it feels like the opposite to what they're trying to do in the studio. And then we come as a label and like, what's your TikTok strategy? Like, we don't do that, or I don't speak like that. But it's like that it's almost anti what they make creatively in terms of taking it down to that short form. But then, you know, my thing is it's the new radio in that sense. It's kind of working out a strategy that allows people to engage with it. It's really interesting seeing like Central C's current record really fly and how engaged he is with creators and everyone from himself and a bunch of streamers and people from Twitch to Michael Barrymore did a version last night. You know what I'm saying? And I know that that's all very strategic and it's a really aggressive strategy, but it's teamed with the traditional radio streaming strategy. So when it does work and works well, then you have a really solid presence and you can connect the dots, and then you have like a peak of engagement and then you can build a campaign on it. But it is frustrating. Even like Universal had some challenges with TikTok and it highlighted some of the feelings the artists had about it, because some were really frustrated. Some were like, yes, I don't have to have a TikTok strategy. You know, okay, like there's feelings around it. Do you know what I mean?
Fair. Do you have any, besides Tyler and Central C, are there any examples of artists who are particularly very good with short form, very good with getting to young people just naturally because of who they are and how they do it? Any learnings from that approach?
Any of our artists?
ideally, so you can plug them in. But
I think,
anyone else?
funnily enough, Bloody's really good at. We have an artist that we managed together, Bloody Civilian, and she's incredible at short form content.
She is incredible.
I think it's probably how she got signed, right? I'd say, yeah. She's incredible at short form content, about putting her music into it. And I think for me, especially, it's been like a really great learning experience working with artists like that. I think previously I'd worked with artists who didn't even want to know their streaming numbers, didn't want to know their TikTok numbers, just wanted to hand over the music and let everyone else do the work. But as soon as she's out the studio, she will sit in on label meetings being like, what's the strategy? How many creators are we speaking to? What territories are they in? And I think it shows in the stuff that she makes. Like, it's, I know there's like a theory that people say, probably pushed by some of you streaming people, that, you know, people need to hear a song, is it 10 times before it blows up? That's like, you need to make like 10 pieces of content before a song blows up. And I think there's some artists who are really leaning into that and some who are not.
Definitely. And I think that the beauty of because some artists are regular and consistent, but I think the thing about Bloody is that there's a consistency visually. There's if you're assessing it again, the sentiment of it remains the same. She's very anti-establishment. She's a young woman from Nigeria, where it's difficult to be a young woman, and you sense that same energy and feeling in everything she does. Even when she adds humor, it's consistent. So I think what she does brilliantly is, it's like the same reason you tune into a TV show or listen to an artist. There's a reason why you engage, and it doesn't really change. It does moves around within a certain space, but I think she does a really good job of creating a world, and it spreads across her other socials, and there's a consistency. Yeah, she's good.
She's incredible. Our last two questions. What do you think this audience should keep an eye on for the future of like music content and artists? Are there any platforms, any trends, anything you see that like keep an eye on that, because I see there's something happening?
I think everything physical and traditional that feels old school. I think live is becoming increasingly important. Even anecdotally, when you talk to fans now, I think the COVID has such a massive effect, and it's still ongoing in terms of how people interact, what people learn in terms of a key young audience in that forming period. They lost a big chunk of that time in terms of things like live shows, and I think I'm seeing a new audience start to really like do things for the first time in a way that they never had before. And I think the impact of that, because obviously you definitely need to try and amplify and replicate it digitally, but you see it like in physical format with things like vinyl. I think people wanting to tangibly have and hold and have something that represents their fandom, obviously like merchandise and all of that. But I think physical experiences, like whatever the interaction is, it ending in something that people can touch and feel and meet other people at, is having increasingly more impact.
I think live, but live at all levels. So not even just like the bigger shows, but I think I've been seeing a lot, especially in the last couple of months, of these kind of DJs-led content. And I think that started with like Boiler Room and stuff. And now you're seeing a lot of different ones that are very themed. I've seen some that are like in my grandma's living room. And that's really cool. I've seen the one in London, Culture FM. They're killing it. And obviously people like No Signal and Boiler Room have done this before, but I think where that is, to me, very cool is that it's a real life experience that then translates digitally, which I think will be like one of the new ways of breaking music.
I've been seeing the same, and it's quite, how do you call it, contagious too, because like they capture a moment from that whole event, and they feed that as short form. And at Culture FM, you probably know what I'm talking about. The transition from Timbaland to Shelly Poppy.
And it feels real. I feel that.
It's very real. It is real.
Exactly.
People are having a party and capturing that. That's a great one.
I think that's something that's going to come back, actually. People having fun again. I think that's going to come back. I think.
That's so old school, man. Having fun.
People having fun again.
Oh, wild.
Caroline, any thoughts?
I don't think I have something to add on to this one specifically.
It's all good. My last question, what's one artist? I mean, we've given so many examples and tams, but one artist that we didn't talk about that this group can keep an eye on. Paralyzed Everyone.
Odu Black. We work with him together as well, but I think obviously not just because Shani's here. I think they do a great job in developing artists, but I think there's a ton of. I was reading something today from Spotify about localization, and I think it's like one of the positives of COVID was I think the inability to travel, and you were forced to kind of engage with local content and media and things around you. So I think it gave people an enhanced appreciation for their art in their local area, country, whatever. So I feel like there's now a real purity in terms of the offerings coming from different places, like that Anglo-American stranglehold. I think out of the FPI top 10 artists, only 2 were American this year, Taylor Swift and another American. But like that is not going to go back. It used to be like 9 or 10, like standard. But now, like, that's not going to change. I think localization. Same with content. I think you can't really infiltrate a market or audience without really understanding what's going on locally. But you didn't even ask me about that.
No, it's okay. We like where you're going.
Yeah. There's some dope artists. And there's a girl called King Maddie who I really like. I like her vocal and what she's doing. Yeah.
Alex had a bonus one.
My only bonus artist I was going to say is Bloody Civilian, who they work with. She is one of my favorite new acts. And I think I heard her about 2 years ago. And I'm just so excited that she's having such a good moment and coming through. So everyone should definitely check her out.
I'm not going to say any of our artists.
That's fine.
I've been listening to this artist called McGee, like MK.GEE. And if you guys have heard of him, incredible artist out of America. I think you've heard of him. He's honestly the best album I've heard this year. Like, incredible artist. He
From America, you said.
From America, yeah. But I was listening to an interview he did with Giles Peterson, and he described his music as luminous, and I'd never heard that word before. And I like looked it up, and it essentially means like something you feel like you've heard before, but you've never heard it before. And his album was really, really good. Definitely recommend it. I think it's going to usher in like a new alternative era in music.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I think we have some time to take questions if there are any. There's one there.
Tell me that's that, please.
Hi guys, my name is Jay. I think this has been very insightful. You spoke about like super fans and fandom at the beginning, and I was wondering, with apps like Stanley that have come out last year, specifically for music fans, do you ever see something specifically for an artist fandom overtaking something like an Instagram or TikTok, for example?
Do you mean for one specific artist, or you mean for artists in general?
Well, yeah, artists in general.
Obviously in Korea, Weverse is really, really big, and that's where all their fandom stuff happens. They sell all their merch there. They have their what do they call them? Those light. Have you seen those? Those light sticks. Like, all the artists in Korea have light sticks, and they're all different colors, and you just buy them, and people go to shows and they program the concerts. I don't know if the West is ready for that sort of fandom level, but I think Weverse, the bigger BTS and New Jeans and all these artists get here and in the US, I think we're gonna see, US artists start using Weverse specifically, and I'm sure Universal will have their own version of that for the American market.
Are you talking about artist-specific worlds, like someone creating their own social network or apps and stuff?
Yeah, so basically, you could take someone like, let's say, Beyonce, for example, and on this platform, she could just communicate directly with her fans. So instead of having to put it out in the big wide world of Instagram, it is literally like you.
Yeah, I think that's happening quietly with email. I think e-com and email communication is happening a lot more. I just feel like it's interesting because I know that in fashion, there's a move away from like the sort of one-stop purchasing places, and a lot of the own brands are taking ownership and aren't, from my basic understanding, sending the same amount of product out. So I feel like if you're enough of a brand, then you definitely want to work out how you can create that. But I feel like, because we years ago we signed KSI out when I worked at Island Records, and we tried to create his own app, and there was definitely there was a bunch of people that ran to it, but then you realize like people use apps and those spaces for more than just one type of content, voice and entertainment. And if you're going to create an app or a world that people are going to exist in and engage, you have to provide all the same stimulus as the places that you're competing with. and I don't think there's many artists and so there's genres and there's worlds, but I think it's very difficult to create the same way Instagram, you can laugh 1 minute, then cry, then music, and same with TikTok. It's like you have to really work hard to keep people engaged in that world, particularly because there's so many other options. So I think email is probably the nearest you'll get to that personally. I don't know how you supersede the amount of stimulus that someone that has everyone in the world providing content versus you, even Beyonce, I think she's amazing, but if you had an app, she herself and her team would have to provide that same level of content and engagement and stimulus, and I think that's really difficult. But email, I think for us is becoming so much more rich in terms of upselling and how much money we make per mail out, because we're able to really specify what people want and measure it. And that's probably, I think, the nearest. I don't know about apps and creating worlds. I think that would be a bit too difficult.
I think we just underestimate quite how hard it is to like create these platforms. You know, it's so clunky and needs so much investment. As you say, you can't really just have a one creator platform anymore. You have to have a space where people can tap into lots of things, and that's just so hard and expensive. You know, looking at things even on a smaller scale, there are artists who have text groups, WhatsApp groups, even now on Instagram, where you have these kind of broadcast communities. You know, people are trying to find ways within things they're already using. I think it's going to be very, very hard for a brand new platform to come through and make a serious wave unless it's something that's already existing in another market that we can kind of pull over.
I think we have time for one more. Thank you for that.
I think. Yeah, I put yours in.
Yeah. Thinking about like stuff like Tiny Desk, what makes an artist want to collaborate with other channels like this? And also, what do you think makes a digital live performance engaging on YouTube?
Oh, this is my favorite question. Something I talk to all my clients about who have, I represent like GRM Daily, for example, or other kind of YouTube platforms. And when I talk to them about content, the idea has to be so simple, even beyond like performance outlets. You look at interview platforms, Chicken Shop Date or Hot Wings, or, any of these platforms that have amazing talent come onto them. You need to give people a reason to be there. They need a consistent format, something that's super, Tiny Desk, I feel like even got bigger in the pandemic because people were just at home. But colors, that's a very simple format. People are used to it. Tiny Desk, very simple. The interview platforms, I said, very simple. You just need something that's brandable, that's unique, and you have to be super consistent, because all of those things had like 0 views at the beginning. It takes so many pieces of content to get it to the point where Usher's coming to do Tiny Desk. And you have to make, because with content, you have to put an investment in, right? Like if you're the person that owns the platform. So actually over time, by the time you've done 100 of them, you've had to put quite a lot of money in it to get to that point. And so a lot of people give up before you kind of have your breaking moment. So it can just require quite a lot of investment to get there. But once you're there, then you are a part of the media tour. You're part of the promo tour. When someone needs to put something out, Thames doing Tiny Desk is a part of her promo tour. This is the Thames show today.
I'm glad we're
Sponsored by Thames. Her album's coming out this week. Just
Finish
kidding.
your thought, please.
That's the point. That's the point, though. Like you have to just be super, super consistent and create something which is amazing.
I agree. Unique.
Thank you. I think we're over time. Thank you so much for joining me, the three of you, the three legends. Thank you, everyone, for listening to us.
Thank you, Nerd.